Practical Fish Keeping in June 2021. Page 6. Reimagining rams. The ram has been a community favourite for decades, yet most are kept incorrectly because of one fundamental error: a yaws housed with the right substrate. By Max Pedley. The ram cichlid, at various times called the blue ram, the Ramiresi's dwarf cichlid, the butterfly cichlid, or the dwarf butterfly cichlid, is arguably one of the most colourful of the readily available aquarium fishes. But it is shrouded with misconceptions, folk wisdom, and half-truths, out of which has emerged much incorrect care advice from hobbyists and retailers alike. As such, and despite its popularity and enduring presence in the trade, how to correctly care for it still remains a mystery to many. Right off the bat, one point of confusion is the correct scientific name to use. Look back through old aquatic publications and you'll find pages dedicated to fish under the names Apistogramma or Papiliochromis ramiresi. In some circles, these synonyms seem alive and well, despite taxonomic updates placing the fish in the genus Microgeophagus many years ago. Note the K in the middle of that, as some literature might still have one last synonym to offer: Microgeophagus. Early origins. Rams, Microgeophagus ramiresi, were first imported in the mid-1900s from Venezuela, and for a while they were considered the holy grail of the aquarium trade. These fish were all wild-caught and were widely coveted. Once captive breeding was cracked by pioneering cichlidophiles, new strains began to appear, often far-fetched from the wild equivalents. Among these, German blues made their debut, a specific line that was bred by aquarists in Germany. In this line, blues dominated a fish which already displayed all of the colours of the rainbow, but these are not the same as the electric blue rams, which appeared much later. Another notable trait of German blues was the size. They were large, and significantly so, dwarfing other rams. Unfortunately, this strain seems no longer to be extant, and if it is, no longer graces the British trade. Editor's note: the last time I saw a German blue for sale was marketed as a German mega ram in 2004. Nowadays, anything labelled or sold as a German blue should really be approached with an air of caution. It's likely that these are blue rams, the standard form as far as the industry is concerned. More recently, gold, electric blue, dark and dark night rams have begun to swamp the trade, a huge array of intrinsic hues emphasised by the hands of breeders. Some of these fish are indeed beautiful, but the cost of this is that they're so far removed from their wild ancestors that much of their parental instincts have been lost. Without direct intervention, they can be at best difficult to breed. What's more, many of these are difficult to sex, as we have changed the species phenotype so heavily. On top of the colours, there are shapes: balloon rams with their squat bodies and long finned variants with draping appendages. Both of these present a Marmite form. Love them or hate them, they are here to stay. Some like it hot. Ask the internet how to keep rams and you'll find yourself in a bog of contradictions. Alas, while many keepers have only dabbled with rams and community tanks, they still feel obliged to share their opinions and one-dimensional experiences. Hailing from equatorial South America, warmth is necessary for successful ram keeping, and I cannot stress this enough. Many tropical fish are chronically kept too warm in aquaria, but for rams the reverse is true. Somewhere between 27 to 32 degrees centigrade should be considered a prerequisite. Keeping them in cool water leads to lethargy and generally poor condition, inviting bacterial and other infections in. Interestingly, wild-caught specimens seem to be a little bit more forgiving with regards to parameters once quarantined and settled, which is unusual when contrasting wild and captive bred fish. Anywhere between 4.5 and 7.0 pH will suffice for quality stock. From working in the trade, I've found that after only a few weeks in captivity, wild-caught specimens can display their full colours, and even go through spawning motions at even a pH of 7.2, albeit in soft water. Ram cichlid. Scientific name, Microgeophagus ramirezi. Pronunciation, Microgeophagus ramirezi. Size, to 4 centimeters. Fish considerably larger than this may be German blue rams. Origin, South America, mainly in the Orinoco region of Venezuela and Colombia. Habitat, slow-moving streams and static bodies of water such as oxbows. Tank size, 60 by 30 by 30 centimeters. Water requirements, soft and acidic to neutral water, 4.5 to 7 pH, 1 to 5 H for wild-caught fish. Temperature, 27 to 32 degrees Celsius. Temperament, can be feisty with other dwarf cichlids but otherwise peaceful, but its water parameters and temperature make it less than suited to the community tank. Feeding, wholly unfussy, offer flakes, pellets, live and frozen daphnia and bloodworm. Availability and cost. Wild types harder to find than farmed variants. Prices start from about £6, but higher for unusual line-bred species such as dark nights. Meanwhile, I've found that captive bred rams from the Far East struggle in such conditions and require an even lower pH to thrive. For farmed fish, anything above 6.5 runs the risk of inviting bacterial infections. Regardless of the source of the fish, it's worth aiming for a low KH, under 5, for optimum results and longevity of the fish. Kiss the ground. Microgeophagus translates as small earth eater, and any prospective keeper would be wise to remember that. Kept on anything other than the finest substrates, rams will struggle and often fail, despite otherwise impeccable water conditions. Sand is passed over the gills as a feeding mechanism, filtering out any small morsels, much like a baleen whale filtering krill and bait fish from the sea. This sifting process also helps to clean the gills, and many being denied the opportunity to do so may result in specific bacterial infections localized around the gills and opercular region. This can manifest itself as some mysterious yet lethal disease, with the aquarist looking for all potential causes while ignoring the obvious. On the back of that, all manner of theories are born, each less accurate than the last. Did you know? In the mid-1960s, rams would sell for around 7 shillings and 6 pence. In today's currency, that's around £6.50 each. How to sex a ram? While the extreme variants are much harder to tell apart, wild type or standard rams are easy fish to identify. Look for the following. Dorsal fin. Males typically feature a series of elongated black rays towards the front of the dorsal fin, while females rarely show any more than one elongated ray on the dorsal fin. The belly. Males will present a consistent base body coloration, while well-conditioned females often show an obviously pink belly patch. The humeral spot. Males show less blue spangling over the spot, while females show lots of blue spangling. Pelvic fins. In the male, these are often more pointed and elongate, while those of a female are blunter at the ends and shorter. In aquaria with outstanding water conditions but incorrect substrates, saprolegena and fungal-like growths may even be witnessed. In some cases, you may even see symptoms of hole in the head, with emaciation, eroding patches of skin over the face, and pinhole-sized holes appearing. Often, these symptoms will be protracted and may lead to fatalities if not recognised and acted upon. The best substrate in any situation is undeniably a fine-grade sand. Feeding rams is the most straightforward aspect in their care, with flake, frozen, pellet and live foods taken by virtually all specimens. Keep your fish on a staple of well-formulated prepared foods, but don't be afraid to offer frozen and live food regularly, and look upon tiny copepods and ostracods growing around the substrate as a bonus. Distribution. The distribution of rams is vast, and they are found virtually throughout the spa of the Orinoco. They are incredibly commonplace in the llanos of Colombia and Venezuela, a huge tropical grassland comprised of savanna and shrubland, not overly dissimilar of those in Central and Eastern Africa. Here, rams can be found in warm, shallow water, often living over a substrate of silt and sand, from which they find microsubstance in forms of microorganisms and insect larvae. Across the range, sympatric species vary, but if you are aiming for a biotope-style aquarium, then rummy-nosed tetras, Petitilia blecheri, cardinal tetras, Paracheiriodon axelrodi, and green neons, Paracheiriodon simulans, will all be authentic. Spawning at home. Under ideal conditions, a ripe pair of rams should spawn. Selecting both sexes should be, in theory, simple, but given the convoluted history of their domestication, it's worth getting the opinion of an expert on any prospective pair. Being substrate spawners, pairs typically deposit eggs on a flat, hard substrate. This might be a pot, a piece of flat slate, or sometimes even the glass. Sometimes a large leaf, such as those of Anubias or Echinodorus, may be used. In theory, the eggs, larvae and fry, should be cared for by both parents, but neglect runs rife among species, and especially with fish from farms. Eggs will hatch after 36 to 48 hours, but don't become mobile for another 5 days or so. You might find that once they've hatched, the fry need to be siphoned into a smaller vessel, where water quality and feeding may be monitored closely. Start the youngsters on small foods, such as infusoria and paramecium. Once they're large enough to take newly hatched brine shrimp, the fry grow quickly. Other rams. Figure 1, the electric blue balloon ram. Figure 2, the German blue ram. Figure 3, the golden ram. Figure 4, the electric blue ram. Figure 5, the longfin golden ram. Figure 6, the golden balloon ram. Figure 7, the longfin ram. Figure 8, the longfin balloon ram.